Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you've been there before, even though you know it's impossible? That strange feeling is actually a fascinating neurological phenomenon called déjà vu. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in your brain during those eerie moments when reality seems to fold in on itself. The explanation behind these memory mirages is far more fascinating than any supernatural theory. Scientists have finally cracked the code on why we experience these peculiar moments of recognition. You might be surprised to learn that this phenomenon affects 2/3 of us, and the science behind it reveals something remarkable about how our brains process memories and reality. The memory illusion. What's really happening in your brain? Have you ever felt like your brain just played a trick on you? That's essentially what déjà vu is. Your mind creating a convincing illusion of familiarity when you're actually experiencing something completely new. It's that sudden, strange feeling that freezes you for a moment as you think, wait, I've been here before. I've already had this exact conversation, even though logically you know it's impossible. Déjà vu is remarkably common, affecting about 2/3 of people regularly, and reveals something fundamental about how our brains process reality. We often think of our memories as perfect recordings of past events, but they're actually complex constructions that our brains actively assemble moment by moment. The truth is, déjà vu isn't supernatural or mystical. It's not evidence of past lives or glitches in the matrix. It's a temporary error in your brain's memory processing system. Understanding this error provides remarkable insight into how our minds work every single day. Consider what happens when you encounter any situation in your daily life. Your brain constantly makes split-second decisions about whether experiences are new or familiar. This happens automatically without conscious effort. When you see a friend's face, your brain immediately flags it as familiar. When you walk down a street you've never visited, your brain correctly categorizes it as new. This categorization happens in milliseconds before you even have time to think about it. Déjà vu is essentially a false alarm in this recognition system. Your brain incorrectly labels a brand new experience as familiar. It's similar to when your smartphone momentarily freezes and suddenly catches up and performs multiple operations at once, triggering notifications that don't quite match what you're doing. The technology made an error in its processing sequence, and that's exactly what your brain does during déjà vu. This error occurs because your brain has multiple parallel systems for processing information that sometimes fall out of sync. Imagine your brain as a massive filing cabinet with an automated system that sorts incoming information. Most of the time, this system works flawlessly. New experiences go into the new folder and familiar ones into the already seen folder. During déjà vu, a new experience accidentally gets filed into the already seen folder. What makes this misfiling particularly fascinating is how convincing it feels. When experiencing déjà vu, you don't vaguely think something might be familiar. You often feel absolutely certain you've experienced this exact moment before. The sensation can be so strong that it stops you mid-sense or makes you question your perception of reality. This intensity occurs because the brain regions activated during déjà vu are the same ones that signal genuine familiarity during normal memory recall. When these regions fire, they generate a powerful, convincing signal that something has definitely been experienced before. It's an overwhelming certainty. This certainty creates a unique cognitive dissonance. One part of your brain is convinced you've experienced this moment before, while another part logically knows this can't be true. Your brain essentially argues with itself, creating that characteristic eerie feeling that defines the experience. This memory misfiring also explains why déjà vu episodes are typically brief, usually lasting just seconds. Your brain quickly resolves the error and returns to normal processing. The false familiarity signal fades away as quickly as it appeared, often leaving you slightly confused about what just happened. Scientists have made significant progress understanding this phenomenon by studying people with temporal lobe epilepsy who often experience intense déjà vu just before seizures. This has provided researchers with important clues about which brain regions might generate these false familiarity signals. Interestingly, the brain regions involved in déjà vu are the same ones critical for everyday memory function. These areas help us recognize familiar faces, remember where we parked, and navigate environments we visited before. Deja vu isn't caused by some obscure, rarely used brain circuit. It's a temporary malfunction in core systems we constantly rely on. The next time you experience déjà vu, try observing it with curiosity rather than confusion. Notice the certainty of the feeling and how it creates that strange conflict between your sense of familiarity and logical knowledge. You're witnessing your brain's recognition system experiencing a temporary glitch, a window into the normally invisible processes constructing your everyday reality. Many people report not only feeling like they've experienced a moment before, but also having the sensation they know what will happen next, almost like a brief premonition. This happens because when your brain falsely flags something as familiar, it might also activate prediction mechanisms that normally engage when you've actually experienced something similar previously. The memory system in your brain isn't just for storing information, it's fundamentally tied to how you predict and navigate future events. When the familiarity signal fires incorrectly during déjà vu, these prediction systems can activate too, creating that eerie feeling that you not only recognize the moment, but somehow know what's coming next. For what is essentially a brain error, déjà vu reveals an incredible amount about the sophisticated machinery working behind the scenes of consciousness. Every moment, your brain performs remarkable feats of recognition, categorization, and prediction, all without your conscious awareness. Déjà vu gives us a rare glimpse when these normally flawless systems briefly malfunction. Understanding the brain mechanisms behind déjà vu makes the phenomenon even more remarkable. It shows us how the feeling of familiarity itself is something your brain constructs rather than a direct perception of reality. But which parts of your brain are responsible for this convincing memory illusion? The answer lies in a specific region that serves as your brain's recognition center, a structure that decides what's new and what's familiar in your ongoing experience of the world. Your temporal lobe, the déjà vu culprit. What if I told you there's a specific part of your brain that's likely responsible for those strange moments of déjà vu? It's not distributed throughout your entire brain, but largely concentrated in one region that serves as your memory's gatekeeper, your temporal lobe. Located on each side of your brain, just above your ears, the temporal lobes play a crucial role in how you process and remember the world around you. These regions function like sophisticated filing systems, sorting incoming information and connecting it with past experiences. They determine whether what you're experiencing is new or familiar, similar to how you might organize documents in labeled folders. The temporal lobe contains several structures critical for memory, with the hippocampus being the most prominent. This seahorse-shaped structure converts short-term experiences into long-term memories. People with hippocampal damage can remember things from before their injury but struggle to create new memories afterward. Your temporal lobe processes familiarity by taking sensory information, sights, sounds, and feelings, and comparing them to your stored memories. Within milliseconds, it determines if what you're experiencing matches something from your past. However, this system doesn't simply make yes-no decisions about familiarity. It creates different recognition responses, sometimes with clear details of when and where you encountered something before, other times with just a vague sense of familiarity. Within the temporal lobe, the Parahippocampal gyrus helps distinguish between familiar and unfamiliar stimuli. When you see something truly familiar, neurons in this region fire in a specific pattern, creating the recognition feeling. During déjà vu, this region appears to activate incorrectly, generating the familiarity signal when encountering something new. Brain imaging studies have captured increased activity in the temporal lobe regions during déjà vu experiences. This provides strong evidence that déjà vu originates primarily from this part of the brain rather than from regions involved in other aspects of memory or perception. Some of the most compelling evidence connecting déjà vu to the temporal lobe comes from people with temporal lobe epilepsy. About 60 to 80% of these patients regularly experience déjà vu, often immediately before seizures. These episodes feature intense familiarity feelings and can last longer than typical déjà vu experiences. Brain recordings show these seizure-related déjà vu episodes begin with abnormal electrical activity in the temporal lobe. Neurosurgeons have even artificially triggered déjà vu sensations by directly stimulating specific parts of the temporal lobe during brain surgery. When electrodes stimulate certain areas, patients report sudden, powerful feelings of familiarity or the sensation that they've experienced the current moment before. During déjà vu, your temporal lobe mistakenly activates the familiarity response without accessing the specific memory. It's generating the recognition feeling without the recall details that normally accompany a true memory. This creates a situation where you feel strongly that you've experienced something before, but can't recall when or where the supposed previous experience happened, recognition without recall. It's like finding a file that's been mislabeled in your brain's filing system. The folder says seen before, but when you open it, there's no information about when or where. This disconnect is why déjà vu feels so strange. Part of your brain signals strong familiarity, while another part can't find any corresponding memory. The temporal lobe connects to numerous other brain regions through neural networks. When it generates a false familiarity signal, it affects how other regions process the current experience. Your frontal lobes receive this familiarity signal and try to make sense of it, creating the confusion that accompanies déjà vu. Research using functional MRI has revealed that the strength of connections between the temporal lobe and frontal regions might determine how intensely someone experiences déjà vu. People with stronger neural pathways between these regions might be more likely to notice the contradiction between the familiarity signal and the knowledge that the experience must be new. The rhinal cortex, another temporal lobe structure, acts as a gateway for information flowing into the hippocampus. During déjà vu, abnormal activity here might trigger familiarity before information is fully processed, creating a mismatch between the feeling of familiarity and the absence of actual memory. Mild electrical stimulation of this area can produce déjà vu-like experiences in laboratory settings. Environments with elements that partially match stored memories might partially activate recognition circuits without fully retrieving specific memories. This partial activation creates conditions for the familiarity response to misfire. Despite all we've learned about the temporal lobe's role in déjà vu, the exact mechanisms causing these false familiarity signals remain somewhat mysterious. What we do know is that this brain region is the primary source of that strange feeling of recognizing something you've never experienced before. But what causes this temporal lobe mix-up in the first place? The answer might be in how your brain processes information. Just like a computer running multiple programs simultaneously, your brain processes experiences through parallel pathways. When these pathways fall out of sync, your filing system can mislabel an experience as familiar when it's actually new, setting off a chain reaction of processing errors throughout other brain regions. Split perception. When your brain lags like a buffering video. Imagine your brain as a computer running two programs at once, each processing the same information but in different ways. Sometimes there's a slight lag between these programs that creates unexpected effects. This is essentially what happens during déjà vu, a timing issue in your brain's information processing that creates that unsettling feeling of familiarity. Neuroscientists call this phenomenon split perception, and it helps explain why déjà vu feels so convincing despite being an illusion. Your brain processes information through multiple routes simultaneously to handle the constant stream of sensory data you encounter every moment of every day. The most important division is between two primary processing pathways. The first is fast, automatic, and operates largely below your conscious awareness. It rapidly categorizes experiences, flags potential dangers, and makes quick familiarity judgments without you having to think about it. The second pathway is slower, more deliberate, and linked to your conscious awareness. It's the pathway that lets you carefully analyze and think about what you're experiencing. In normal circumstances, these pathways work in perfect synchrony, but occasionally they can fall slightly out of sync, like when an online video buffers and the audio gets ahead of the visual by a fraction of a second. Though the content remains the same, that tiny timing difference creates a disjointed experience. Picture this. You're entering a cafe you've never visited before. As you step through the doorway, everything suddenly feels familiar. The arrangement of tables, the sound of coffee grinding, the pattern of light through the windows. For a brief moment, you're certain you've been here before, even though you know that's impossible. This is déjà vu in action. During this split-second experience, your brain's fast system processes the cafe scene, categorizes its elements, and triggers a familiarity response before your conscious mind fully registers what you're seeing. When your conscious awareness catches up, you experience something strange, a scene that feels familiar despite being new to you. You're essentially experiencing the same moment twice, with a slight delay between processing pathways. Research examining neural activity during déjà vu episodes supports this theory. Scientists have measured how quickly different brain regions activate when processing new information. They've discovered that regions responsible for familiarity judgments sometimes fire milliseconds before regions involved in conscious awareness. This tiny timing difference creates the convincing but false sense that you've experienced something before. Déjà vu occurs more frequently when you are tired, stressed, or distracted. Conditions when your brain's processing pathways are more likely to become desynchronized. Your attention might briefly lapse, creating a momentary gap between automatic processing and conscious awareness. The brief nature of déjà vu experiences, typically lasting only seconds, further supports this explanation. The timing delay between processing pathways quickly corrects itself as your brain systems resynchronize. Once the pathways realign, the strange feeling of familiarity vanishes as quickly as it appeared. The split perception theory elegantly explains the characteristic double-take quality of déjà vu. People describe feeling like they're simultaneously experiencing something for the first time while remembering it from before. This makes perfect sense if different parts of your brain are processing the same information with a slight timing offset. Laboratory tests have validated this theory. By presenting visual information to one eye milliseconds before showing it to the other, researchers create artificial timing delays in processing. These experiments have successfully induced déjà vu-like experiences in participants. Neuroimaging studies reveal unusual activation patterns during déjà vu. Brain regions involved in familiarity detection activate before the regions responsible for initial perception fully process the information. This disrupted sequence creates ideal conditions for a familiarity response misfire. Complex environments with abundant visual information require more processing resources, increasing the likelihood of timing delays between brain pathways. This explains why déjà vu often happens in unfamiliar places with complex visual scenes, like when traveling or exploring somewhere new. The doorway effect provides a fascinating real-world example. Walking through a doorway creates a brief mental reset that affects memory processing. This momentary recalibration might create just enough of a processing delay to trigger déjà vu. Many people report experiencing déjà vu when entering a new room or building. The temporal lobe's role in déjà vu connects well with this theory. This brain region contains many structures involved in quick, automatic familiarity assessment. A processing delay might cause these temporal lobe structures to flag something as familiar before your conscious mind fully registers the experience. This explanation transforms déjà vu from something mysterious into something logically understandable. It's simply what happens when your brain's parallel processing capabilities experience a tiny timing discrepancy. The feeling seems mysterious because we're not consciously aware of these different processing pathways during normal experience. This theory also explains why déjà vu doesn't typically involve a complete memory. During true memory recall, you recognize something as familiar and retrieve specific details about when and where you encountered it before. In déjà vu, you get the familiarity signal without these accompanying details, exactly what you'd expect the familiarity system activated independently due to a processing delay. Your brain isn't completely fooled by this trick. Your frontal cortex serves as a reality checker, recognizing something isn't quite right with this false familiarity signal. This creates the characteristic confusion that accompanies déjà vu, the brain's fact checker, your frontal cortex at work. Why do we know something feels strange during déjà vu instead of just accepting the false memory as real? If your temporal lobe is generating a powerful familiarity signal, why don't you simply believe you've experienced the moment before? The answer lies in another critical brain region, your frontal cortex, the brain's built-in fact checker that prevents you from being completely fooled by this memory illusion. Located at the front of your brain behind your forehead, the frontal cortex functions as your brain's command center for logical thinking, critical analysis, and reality testing. When your temporal lobe sends out that false familiarity signal during déjà vu, your frontal cortex scrutinizes it carefully. It analyzes the logical consistency of this feeling against what you know to be true. This creates a fascinating neural conflict. One brain system, your temporal lobe, signals you definitely experienced this before, while another system, your frontal cortex, counters that's impossible. This is clearly a new situation. This contradiction generates déjà vu's characteristic eerie quality. It feels both intensely familiar and unmistakably wrong simultaneously. The frontal cortex operates like a meticulous editor reviewing a manuscript. It examines each claim of familiarity, checking it against your verified life experiences. When you experience déjà vu, this internal editor immediately flags inconsistencies. Have I actually been in this exact place before? Or is it physically possible for me to have had this exact conversation previously? This critical analysis occurs rapidly and mostly below conscious awareness, but results in that distinct feeling of knowing something isn't quite right about the familiarity sensation. Your frontal cortex essentially creates an error message, flagging the familiarity feeling as logically impossible given what you know about your past experiences. This frontal lobe analysis creates a unique form of metacognition, awareness about your own cognitive processes. During déjà vu, you experience familiarity while simultaneously recognizing that the familiarity itself is unusual or incorrect. This metacognitive awareness involves sophisticated monitoring and evaluation of your own thoughts and perceptions. Brain imaging studies reveal increased activity in frontal regions during déjà vu experiences, particularly in areas associated with conflict monitoring and error detection. These same regions activate when you recognize other cognitive inconsistencies. Your frontal cortex essentially signals something doesn't add up here. This explains why déjà vu differs from normal memory. True memories produce familiarity signals accompanied by specific details your frontal cortex can verify as logically consistent with your past. During déjà vu, familiarity arrives without these verifiable details, creating a cognitive mismatch your frontal cortex immediately detects. The frontal cortex actively tries to resolve this inconsistency. Many people report mentally searching during déjà vu, attempting to place when they supposedly experienced the moment before. Your frontal cortex searches through memory banks for a logical explanation, but finds nothing because no prior experience exists. This verification function explains why déjà vu typically triggers curiosity rather than fear. Your frontal cortex quickly identifies the familiarity as false, so you recognize it as an interesting perceptual phenomenon rather than truly reliving a past experience. Without this verification system, déjà vu might be significantly more disorienting. Studies of people with frontal lobe damage provide additional evidence for this mechanism. Individuals with certain frontal lobe injuries sometimes experience confabulation, creating false memories they fully believe without the skepticism that normally accompanies such thoughts. These patients might experience déjà vu-like phenomena but lack awareness that the familiarity is incorrect. The interaction between temporal and frontal lobes during déjà vu reveals something fascinating about consciousness itself. Your experience of reality results from multiple brain systems working together, sometimes harmoniously and sometimes in conflict. Déjà vu offers a glimpse into what happens when these systems temporarily disagree about your current experience.